Hi, welcome to the Get Strong and Healthy podcast. My name is Anna Clow. Thank you for being here. Today, we have a special guest joining us, Ellen Carpe, co-owner of Ashburn Row House, another local woman fitness business owner here, which I'm really excited to chat with. So, Ellen, please share with us anything more about you. And then I want to hear about your story, how Ashburn Row House came to be, and also if you have a personal story that kind of goes with that.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. When you were reaching out for guests, I was like, I have to share my story. I mean, right? Because your podcasts and the theme of your podcast episodes really stem obviously from health and wellness. But to me, the overarching theme after listening to a lot of your podcasts and your episodes already is really just having that mindset and that behavior, whether, no matter what it is, but having that mindset and the behavior for success and reaching goals, right? And so, we in the fitness industry, we always have a goal, right? So it could be a short-term goal, a long-term goal, but we have goals, and we definitely have to have strength of mind in order to strengthen that body, right? So thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. So my story, it starts back in seven when I realized that I really didn't love working out. I did it because, being healthy, of course, but back then in my 20s, I was like, kind of want to get into the bodycon dress. All right, the only way to do that is if I go work out. All right, great. So I'm not willing to pay for $100 membership at Sport and Health over at Tyson. So maybe I could get a job there. So I got a job there, and I ended up teaching the hip hop and low impact classes. I did not have a fitness background. I think the only athletic background I had was as a cheerleader in high school, right? So there you go. So that's how I started my fitness, I guess, career, if you will, or my fitness journey as a professional. So I would teach low impact classes there, and of course the hip hop classes. Those were super fun. And I did that for a few years, got married, had a couple of kids, and continued the working out, even though I just mentioned earlier that it's gonna sound, I don't know, maybe it's crazy, but I don't really love working out. But I knew that if I taught classes, that would get me in the gym, and I would work out even more. Now, did I love the results? Absolutely, right? So yeah, it was like pulling teeth to get me into the gym, but sometimes you couldn't get me out of the gym, right? Because the results were always the goal for me. So that I did like the results. And to be perfectly honest with you, working out allowed me the ability to learn how to eat a little bit better, right? And I remember you doing a nutrition session with us at the studio, and you taught me and everyone there a lot, right? So I kind of keep those in the back of my mind, in the pockets of my mind, to make sure that I am able to fuel my workouts to be able to fuel my goals, right? So in and out of fitness in the early 2000s. And then my family and my husband and two children, we ended up moving down to South Florida, where of course everyone is beautiful. And I knew that I had to maintain some level of fitness down there. So our daughter, down when we moved down to South Florida, she ended up playing softball. One of the things that I realized was that these kids would come to practice, and they weren't really in good shape, right? They were not really eating well. And, it's just really what you could shove into your kid in between picking them up from school and shipping them off to practice, coming back home late, doing homework, and then putting them off to bed. Totally get it. I was that mom. But then I realized, I'm like, you know what, there's something that we can do here. So what I did was I talked to one of our daughter's softball coaches and said, hey, listen, why don't we put a business together? You obviously have your your softball expertise. Go ahead and do that. I have the fitness understanding, right? So I'm certified as a group fitness instructor. I do have a speed and agility certification. Let me go ahead and utilize that, and let's build a conditioning program for these softball players, and especially young girls, right? They were 10 to 12 years old. All of a sudden, they become body conscious. Well, hey, you know what? Let's start incorporating fitness as a way of life, right? Or wellness as a way of life, and being fit just happens to be part of that, whatever that means for you, right? As a girl, there is not a one size fits all body. We all know that. So I incorporated a 30-minute conditioning class for softball teams throughout the county, right? So I was maybe doing 3 or 4 softball teams and then 2 baseball teams. So even the boys got involved in it because our son played baseball. So I maintained that business for a few years, and that went really well. And then we ended up coming back home 8 years later here back into Northern Virginia. And that's when actually my husband and I said, hey, do we really want to start another business? And I'm like, sure, why not? So we looked at a whole bunch of different things, anywhere from, franchise and pest control to food trucks to maybe a restaurant. And then I said, how about something in fitness? And so we just looked through a whole bunch of things, and he was working with a franchise broker, and then Row House came up. So this was probably back in 2017, 2018. So he talked to the franchise broker about Row House. It was an up and coming fitness modality. And then he said, hey, why don't you go check it out? So I went out to California where the corporate office was based. We did 2 discovery days, and I really, really liked what Row House brand was all about, right? So the inclusivity of it all. So yeah, it's a great modality. It's wonderful on your joints. It is low impact. And because it's all of those things, it doesn't exclude anybody, right? So I was talking earlier about body image and about how there is no one size fits all. Well, guess what? That erg fits all. And that was important to me, right? So I was, everyone's getting older, including myself. And I was just like, oh, low back pain, knee pain, this pain, that pain. So I'm like, you know what, let's give it a try. So 2018, signed an agreement. 2019, we started the build out in Ashburn. And then, so that's 2019, summer 2019, we're starting to hire people in the fall of 2019. In the winter of 2019, in the winter of 2020, now we've got a whole coach crew, right? We're getting them trained up, and we sent them down to, where was it? To North Carolina for a weekend's worth of training, right? And then the first week of March hits in 2020. So you want to know how the pandemic affects me? We were supposed to open in March of 2020. That came to a halt.
Oh my goodness. Tell us more, like how that kind of went down, what was going through your head.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that crossed my mind was, whoever they were, are they not going to let us open? Because I was like, we're opening. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to open if we have 1 member. But we had probably 50 to 75 members by then, right? And we hadn't even opened. They had never been on an erg. No one had ever been on an erg. And so that was a true testament to our coaches and our sales team at that time, to, that they believed in the product, or they believed in the workout and the modality. And so that's a true testament to why rowing, just as a workout, to me is really cool. Anyway, so then of course the CDC comes out with all of the restrictions, this and that. And I was like, you know what, listen, my husband and I had a long conversation with ourselves and then with the team, and we made sort of this decision together to postpone the opening. We didn't at the time have an idea of when that would be. So, we postponed it. We said, hey, listen, obviously due to the world, we're going to go ahead and postpone our opening. But in that time, we really got an understanding of what this sickness was, or what this pandemic was all about. And this was just, I think, everyone. So never mind the fact that we're business owners, and like you and our business owner, never mind all that, but we're humans just trying to figure out, what news story is true? What is it that we're allowed to do? Can we even go outside of the house? Are we not allowed to go outside of the house? Is it 10 feet apart or 20 feet apart? Those kinds of things. So we still allowed the studio to be open for the coaches to practice, right? We did make sure that everyone was safe. Everyone still maintained 6 feet apart, but they built a partnership with each other. And so that's one of the things that I feel like the pandemic actually did. And while I'm not thankful for the pandemic, I'm thankful for some of the outcomes of it, right? So for us at least, it built a partnership and a closeness, and like, hey, listen, we're in this together. So let's sort of rise above all the noise, and let's do our job. Let's do our job the best that we can. So when we do open, we know exactly what we're doing, and we know how we can help people. The difference was that it wasn't just about training, right? The coaches on class programming and on marketing the value of the workout. It was, hey, we're also safe. We're also minding the CDC. We're also minding state and local requirements, those kinds of things. We have all of these cleaning processes in place, and we still actually do. So, I mean, we had to add that as part of our protocol and our SOPs to make sure that not only did our staff know that we were keeping them safe, but it allowed us to extend that notion of safe to anyone who was interested or curious about the workout, right? So the resiliency of having to pivot was was probably more than I ever imagined. It took a lot. It took a lot out of me. It took a lot out of my husband. It probably challenged us as a couple in some ways. But but we were able to do that. And interestingly enough, once we were able to get a hold of that notion of providing a safe place for people, prospects and members actually started coming in when we said, hey, listen, we've got practice classes for you guys. As long as you honor what the CDC and local and state government is having us do, masks, take your temperature, 10 feet apart at that time, please, you're more than welcome to come in. And we were having practice classes that were full. Now, granted, we allow 25 in the studio today, but back then it was 11. And at one point we had to go back to 9. So when we would have practice classes, people were signing up and they were like, we want to do this. We want to do this. And, and at first I thought, okay, you want to keep your fitness goals up. I get it. But in the end, I realized that it was less about keeping and honoring their own fitness goals, but really just, hey, listen, I am tired of being isolated. So thank you for creating this safe place for me, but I got to have a place where I can connect with people. Talking to someone through a glass is just, it's not who we are as humans. So we were able to still continue sort of a human approach through this whole pandemic. And I think that has really stuck with us as co-owners, and we've extended it off to our team to say, okay, listen, guys, it's really important that, as these people are working through, as our members are working through their own fitness and wellness journeys, we have a responsibility to create a safe place for them, to let them know that we are inclusive, and to know that they can continue to build connections with like-minded people. So that has really been probably one of the best things that I have learned about myself and about owning a business, right? The pandemic allowed me to sort of expand my thoughts on what that really meant. So thank you, pandemic.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I cannot even imagine, opening a brick and mortar. The March 2020 is the open date, and that happened. So yeah, it sounds like you handled it with as much grace as you possibly could. And so, definitely that's awesome. And by the way, for any of you guys listening who have not checked out Row House is freaking awesome.
Aw.
Classes are so much fun. Like I've taken a few, and every time I find myself with this big smile on my face, just the energy of like the music and everyone's at the same beat. I can't get over it.
There's something mesmerizing about it, right? I mean, because we all have our own rhythm, and that's totally great. But I love that everyone comes together. And I think this is really, this is why I actually in particular love the brand, because it's less about me, and my, and more about us and we, right? It is a team sport through and through. You have to be in harmony physically and rhythmically. And we get it there. So obviously you've got the coach up at the front that's there to guide you, but you look around and you're like, hey, wait a second, I gotta get in rhythm with these guys. Like I can't be messing up the rhythm here. And so, you want to pull your weight for your team, for your crew. And so that's kind of cool, right? I mean, and I think sometimes, as we want to or continue to sort of have those wellness goals, I mean, part of that mindset is saying, hey, listen, I'm going to lift you up, man. I'm going to pick you up when you need help. And you know what? There's no judgment. There's no hard feelings. There's none of that. I'm just there to help you through it. And so that's why I love that row room so much, right? I love being there. If I could do every minute of the day, I probably would.
So I would love for you to talk to us more about just the power of community. That's something that you were kind of touching on, and I think is a huge part of people's well-being. And so I'd love to hear kind of like what you've maybe seen with creating a wonderful community of your own.
Yeah, that's why I've loved group fitness, right? So sure, you can always put your sneakers on and you can go outside. And by the way, I mean, every now and then I will do it just for peace of mind. But I love group fitness because I just enjoy one, the music. Music's always great. But I really enjoy seeing people. I enjoy talking to people and understanding what they're going through and maybe making that connection, right? So, in terms of community, that was really, again, what drew us to this brand, this notion of inclusivity. So, my husband, Barry, and I, we have always been the type of people that the door is wide open. Our home is always open to you. You need a place to stay, you need a place to live, you need a place to go, you're here for it. Oh, wait, you know what, you want to host, a party or something, but you don't have any place to do, have it at our house. Have it, we don't really care. We love to make those kinds of connections with people, and we love to build that sense of community. And maybe that's probably why we had our kids in team sports as well, right? Because it wasn't just about our kid being, striving to be the best ball player, but it was about how them getting better helps the team. And then us as parents, it's like we all banded together, like, hey, listen, what can we do to make this team number one? And it wasn't just about one player or this player or that player. It was about how that literal connection during each game made everybody better. So it's really just, and again, so Barry and I, we just knew that we wanted to build some level of community in our studio. So it was basically bridging what happened in the studio to what happens outside of the studio. We have people that have been members now for, I mean, we've been open now for 4 years. So we ended up opening in June of 2020. Had a ribbon cutting ceremony. It was fantastic. And since then, we have had members that, I mean, I'm not going to say they're lifelong friends, but I mean, they are friends. They've been invited to weddings, baby showers, other celebrations, birthdays, all of those major milestones in people's lives. You have seen members attend other members' wonderful milestone events. And so that's what makes us happy, right? Yes, we run a business, and from a business running standpoint, of course, we want to see some success there. But part of that success is really seeing how our members come to class. Some come to the same class every night, right? So I remember teachers teaching a Tuesday night 7:15 class for a few months, and it's the same ladies that came in. These ladies met each other at the studio. They've gone to concerts together, they've gone on trips together. They are friends, and they really look forward to being with each other for that 45 minutes. And to me, that's kind of what it's all about. Sure, you get a great workout, and I'm happy you do. Now you're sort of sharing your wellness journey with someone might who probably would have been a complete stranger to you, right? Otherwise. And so to me, I'm getting kind of teary eyed because it's kind of, I don't really get to talk about it very much, but that just means a lot. I think of two members in particular, Flo and Cindy. Love those women, and they're just wonderful people. Everyone is, but I mean, I'm thinking about them in particular just because they're the team class.
Yeah, it's just so fun to hear about, what you've created, the community you've created, and, your success in this business is just a reflection of that and the amazing, service that you guys offer. So I love it. And I think for our listeners, this is just a really good reminder to you all to really lean into your community. I think the pandemic really taught us this, that loneliness, isolation is not a good thing for mental well-being. And really getting out there, going to these places that have the people that you can connect with, even if it's, just being in a class, not necessarily talking one-on-one, just being around people has such a powerful effect. So definitely get out there and connect with peeps.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you really think about it, we provide a holistic approach to health, right? Our mission, for us at least, is to help people achieve their full potential, right? So I don't consider myself just an owner of a business or a fitness instructor. I consider myself a person who is really here to help you achieve your full potential, whatever that is, right? So when we talk to people that are coming, like, hey, listen, why are you here? What is it that you want to achieve? Of course I want to lose weight and I want to get into better. I want to feel better about myself. Great. So let's talk about how you can do that, right? So you're going to spend 45 minutes here. Let's take all of that and, what do you want to do when you get outside of the house, right? Or when you get to outside of the studio? How can we help you there? So yeah, it's about, in my opinion, it's not just the physical, but you're right, it's the mental and the emotional too. Where does that great workout take you? Right? In the end, true wellness is more than just, lifting weights or rowing on an erg. It's really just about achieving balance. And I think fitness is part of that balance. It really is.
100%, 100%. I would love for you to share with us some of your, maybe biggest lessons that you've learned on either your own fitness journey, your row house journey, and also curious about just like the side of being a business owner, your biggest lessons from that. For myself, I love to, ask these questions for me, but yeah, so for our listeners too, what have been like your biggest takeaways? And I know it's kind of a broad question.
It is, but I mean, you're right. I mean, I think that book on lessons learned as a business owner will never be done. There will never be a last chapter, for as long as I do own a business. I mean, so like, I guess starting as a business owner, I mean, the lesson that I learned was, I'm just trying to put this into words. Really think about what you want at the other side of starting a business, right? Sure. Everyone says, well, I want to be successful. I'm like, well, what does that actually mean? Right? I want to make money. Okay, great. So let's talk about how you make money. I want this many members. Okay, great. So let's talk about how we do that. But in the end, those are just numbers, right? And for me, I think the biggest lesson that I learned was there again, it's that holistic approach, right? To how that holistic approach to, I guess, my health, my business owner health, right? Okay. So it's about that balance, right? So okay, so I got the numbers and I know what I need to do. Great. So now I've got standards and procedures that I need to do to achieve that, is in terms of membership sales, hiring people, how much the budget's going to be, this, that, and the other. Yep. And I got those standards and those procedures on how to train our coaches on being the best coach they can. Wonderful. So we've got all of that in our toolbox. Now how do you manage that whole other side of it, right? That whole mental side of it. And there is a mental and there's an emotional side of it that you can't put on paper. You can't put on a spreadsheet. There is no number to that. And I think, now granted, had the pandemic never happened, I'm sure I would have come to this conclusion also. But just, just a few minutes ago, I was talking about how I was getting teary eyed about how, two people became really close friends. That's important. I mean, and so I think the biggest lesson learned is don't ignore, well, remember that owning a business is not just the numbers or just a spreadsheet or just, success measured by, again, a physical attribute, right? So whether it's a brick and mortar, I mean, that's a physical attribute. That's great. Stood up. Wonderful. But what's the other side of it? How can you feel complete as a business owner? Is it really just the numbers? For me, it wasn't, right? It might be for somebody else, but for me, it wasn't. And so when we were asked to take over 2 more studios, we really kind of had to sit down and think about, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And I said, because I think we can build a community down in DC. That's why I think we should do it. We already have all the tools. We already know what we need to do, but I think we can build a community of the same type, similar type, different demographic, of course, in DC, West End, and then on the other side of town in Shaw. I think we can do it. So I sort of leaned in a little bit into the mental and the emotional side of things. And honestly, I think that's where my husband and I's partnership got a lot better, because he's the numbers guy, he's the budget guy, and I'm the on the other side of it from an aesthetic standpoint, in emotional aesthetics, a an environment aesthetics, and a team building aesthetics. So I think, yeah, so if that's the lesson, that probably the biggest lesson that I learned, is really just leaning into and nurturing that other side of owning a business, which is mental and emotional. And you can't ignore it. You can't. That's when you break. And that sort of just ties to this whole notion of overall well-being. So yeah, that's the business lesson learned.
I look at it as like you have to be clear on your North Star, is how one of my mentors would always talk about it, is like, what do you want out of this business? And I think that people kind of have a hard time maybe knowing themselves, knowing what's truly meaningful to them. Like, is it money, or is it, do you want to be fulfilled, right? All of us want to be fulfilled. And like, is your goal like more freedom? Is your goal more impact? Like, what is like more important to you? And like that clarity is key. And also not, I think you were kind of like alluding to this a little bit, is like not thinking there's like an illusion of, when I reach this end goal, when I hit this number, when whatever, like, that I'm gonna finally feel
Yeah,
like successful or accomplished, right?
exactly.
Yeah, you get to create that feeling every day if you allow yourself, I believe.
I totally agree. It's really just sort of how you want to wake up in the morning. Like, I was interesting. I was talking to my daughter today, and it's like, how you doing? Because she lives up in Boston now. And she was like, she goes, I just feel like I haven't been able to get really good sleep lately. And I was like, why? She was like, I'm just waking up anxious in the middle of the night and then in the morning. And I was just like, well, why? And then she goes, I don't know. She goes, there's a lot going on. And I said, well, use that time. And I was like, you get to decide how you wake up in the morning. And you're deciding that you want to wake up anxious, because that's how you're going to bed. And I said, I am not by any stretch a therapist. I just know what works for me. And I said, you know what? When I wake up in the middle of the night feeling that same, because people do, that's because I went to bed that way. And I owe it to myself to sort of try and get to bed with a clear mind. So does that mean writing down, or me typing in my phone notes what's bugging me or what I need to accomplish the next day? I've always found that that sort of helps me, right? Again, you get to choose how you want to wake up in the morning. So that's the power of you, right? So that's the power that you have over yourself and over your surroundings, is that you get to choose.
I love that. That is such, I think it's one of my personal, I don't know if like core values would be like the best way to put that, but something I'm always reminding myself is like, every day I'm choosing how I am creating my reality, like how I feel,
Mhm.
how I'm creating my external reality, but mostly, it starts with how I'm creating my internal reality. And I think that asking yourself the question, like, what am I letting this thing, whatever the situation is, like mean, right? Or this thought that you have, like, what are you letting that mean? And like knowing that, just like you're saying, you have the power to decide what you're going to let, these different issues, whatever it is in your life, like mean to you.
Oh my God, exactly, right? I mean, and people will always say, well, I can't control other people. I'm like, you're right, you can't control it, but you can control how you feel impacted by them, or how you let them impact you. You get to choose that. So, again, it's really just this notion of the power that you have over your own decisions, and how you empower yourself, to just sort of either, go around the storm, right through the storm, wait till the storm goes by. That's, again, that's really your thing. And I think from a life lesson standpoint, that's the one thing that I've learned. I mean, just the power of being able to overcome any adversity that I face, right? That I choose to face. Again, owning a business, this is, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's not much is. Like, there's not much in life that actually is easy. You just get better at doing the hard stuff. That's actually a quote from the Duke women's basketball coach. I can't remember her name. She goes, "Things don't get easier. You just handle hard better." And that is just one thing that I'm like, man, that sent chills down my spine, you know? So that's probably the biggest life lesson, I think, for me, just having gone through all of this. And I think overall, and it's kind of the same life lesson that I want to be able to give my kids. I'm like, you know what? It's, you know, if you want to care about what people say about you or what people think about you or how you're doing something or how, you know, mom and dad are handling business, okay. But not going to change how mom and dad handle business. So, you know,
Yeah, yeah. And the quote that you said, I say that very similarly to my clients all the time when, when they're finally like getting an exercise down and I'm like, all right, it's time to up the weight. They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it never gets easier. You just get stronger, is what I like to say.
that's exactly it. That's exactly like a couple of our coaches. So Coach Jason, who's also a regional manager, he knows almost everyone in all three studios, if he doesn't know all of them, and he just knows how to push their buttons and they work harder. All of our coaches do that, right? Because we all know the members and we know what they're capable of. And this is part of that community and that connection that we also want to build. Like, hey, listen, I know what your fitness goal is. I know how I can get you there. So trust me that for the next 45 minutes, I'm going to get you closer to it. So that's part of that connection and that community that's been really important to me. So I've really enjoyed that. But yeah, I'd probably say that's probably a really good fitness lesson learned too, is that building trust, not just in, yeah, building trust in the members is really important because they walked into, you know, they came to you and they came to me in the studio for a reason. They already came there with trust, right? If they signed up and if they signed up with you or they signed up with me, they already trust you. And so you better make good on that trust. You
Mhm.
have skills, you have the ability, so do you.
Absolutely. And I think kind of a lot of the principles we were talking about come back to this idea of radical responsibility, like taking ownership over your life. And I just love that, that kind of came up in our conversation. I feel like it's come up in my podcast many times before, but it's like a big theme that I always am thinking about and trying to do my best in life is there's like a book on it. I think it's called Extreme Ownership. I think it might be like Jocko
Okay. So
wrote it, but I haven't read it. I've just heard a lot about it. But yeah, it's like just this idea of like we have the power to, dictate our realities, create our realities and I love
do
what you said of like what am I choosing to, let bother me or like choosing the things that are hard. Like I chose this, like, knowing that. And I try to remind myself when business it feels really hard or I'm having a bad day, I'm like, all right, this is hard and it's supposed to be. And like anything good in life comes from doing hard things, whether it's business and whether you're on your fitness journey, right? Like remembering that, oh my God, this feels so hard. Sometimes I flip that around and I go, okay, this is hard. That's good. I'm leaning into that. This means I'm getting better.
I'm getting stronger. I am outdoing myself, right? I'm like, I 100%. Are you kidding me? I can give 125. So let's go. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to the person who is, wanting to join a fitness program, wants to sort of get out there, but maybe they're a little bit scared. Maybe they're like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know how this community is going to accept me. Like, what would you say to that person who's kind of on the fence?
I would say I understand the fear, right? If there is fear, right? Like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, you know what? Well, try it. Be honest with yourself, right? In terms of what it is that you really want to get out of any workout, right? What are you looking for? Not just oh, I need to get in better shape. I'm like, okay, great. So let's really talk about what it is that you want to do. Well, some people will expose that they're pre-diabetic. I'm like, okay, great. So let's figure out what that is for you. Some people may say, and I get this often actually these days, is, oh my gosh, I'm perimenopausal, menopausal, or postmenopausal. Like, hey, you know what? Then maybe we need to think about a more of a strength class for you. So let's think about doing that. So, in terms of what it is that what advice I would give to someone who's looking for a fitness or any wellness program to sort of better themselves holistically, is just like, be honest with yourself about what you actually want. Because if you don't really sit down, theoretically, sit down and just think about what it is that you want from a boutique studio, fitness studio, or a gym or a nutritionist, then how can you really commit to getting it done, right? So just that's what I would say. And so when we talk to people, we do ask them questions like, okay, so listen, tell me why you're here. Listen, I'm not going to go into like, a 30-minute discussion about it. I'm like, tell me why you're here. I'm like, I want to lose weight. I'm like, okay, great. You know, how long have you been struggling? Is there a weight that you want, a number that you want to not get to, but how much you want to lose? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, great. So let's talk about, things like, what makes you comfortable? Like, what kind of exercise do you enjoy or hate least? So I even will talk about that because, again, because we are an inclusive studio because we have different types of classes. Again, it is a low impact class or a low impact modality, but we also offer different types of classes that can satisfy the majority of the people that come to the class, right? And satisfy and fulfill the needs and their goals. So again, for someone who is trying to look for a fitness and a wellness regime, I guess, is just really be honest with yourself about what it is that you want to achieve. And I think once people really realize that they can be honest and without fear of doing that, then they sort of open up. And then you start seeing them come to class. And then you start seeing them come to more classes. Then you start seeing them develop a friendship, seeing that same person in class and talking. Then you start saying, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Those kinds of things add up. And again, it's just about allowing yourself as a person who has or wants to achieve certain things to trust yourself in finding out what you really want and allowing yourself to trust someone else to help you.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much, Ellen, for sharing your story, sharing your insights. This was so awesome. And I know this is going to be inspiring for people listening, myself included.
Oh,
I love hearing about your journey.
course. And listen, I am just so happy about all of your success. Congratulations. You are killing it out there.
Thank you so much.
You guys, she's amazing. You're amazing, Anna.
Thank you, Ellen. You're so sweet. Back at you. Love that we're, women business owners out here doing the dang thing.
Yeah.
But yes. So anything else that you want to leave our listeners with today?
Let's see here. You know what? I just 5 words and I have them written down and I look at them all the time. And it's kind of where this conversation has stemmed from, right? So for the first word is resilience. We've brought that word up a couple times already. It's just allow yourself to make changes. Let yourself, just know that you're strong enough to be resilient in having to pivot or having to make changes. It's okay, right? And it's okay to do that. My other word is safe. Know that if you are in the fitness industry, just knowing that the people that come to you trust you. So we have a responsibility to make sure that the people that do come to us feel safe and can sort of express themselves in any manner that they need to, whether it's a class, whether it's any type of private session in terms of fitness or wellness, that we should provide a safe place for our clients and our members to be. Building connections. We talked about this. Connections and community is really important. Look beyond the numbers because the numbers are great and you always want to see them going up or doing great things and making a business successful. But in the end, you have to really also consider that other side of it, that other mental and emotional side of it, of building a community, building those right connections. I think it's important. And, my fourth word, I think it's my fourth word, is approach. It's, how do you approach or how do you start building those connections or start building those safe places for your clients and your members to be? It's those aesthetics that you create around your business, around your clients and around yourself. That's really, really important, right? And then finally, that last word that we talked about, it's power. And it's not, people something like, oh, you don't have power over me. It's to me, that's not a negative word. It's a great word, actually. I have the power over myself to make the kinds of decisions and choices that I feel are going to suit me and who I care about the best. And so, have the power to empower. So those are my,
That have the power to empower. Wow.
yeah. So yeah, those are my parting words. Literally, resilience, safety, connections, approach, and power.
Love that so much. Thank you again, Ellen. Have a great rest of your day, and everyone else listening, I will see you on the next episode.
Thank you so much, Anna.
Bye. Wait, hold on one second. Actually, where can they find you?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's probably really important. So you can find me on Instagram. So I am my profile is LNMAE or Ellen Carpe. You can search me under there. Or you can find me at Row House Ashburn, Row House Shaw, or Row House West End. And DM me if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer them. You know what? If you want to give us a try, just try us out. Again, it is a low impact class. I'd be happy to work with you. Any of the coaches would be happy to work with you. And so, yeah, that's how you can get in touch with me. Or if you have any other questions and you want a safe place to be able to ask those questions, you can email me at ellen.carpe, CARPE, rowhouse.com.
Love it. Thanks, Ellen. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.